Finally, gay dads have a place where they can get the information, guidance, and support that they so rightly deserve, that is marketed to them, written for them. Often these days, we only see parenting advice being written by and for moms or people who gave birth. But David Morgenstern went beyond that. He created Gaddies. It's not just an adorable and beautiful clothing line and apparel resource, but it's also a spot where experts have come together to provide their wisdom with the gay dads who want to learn. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the opportunity to introduce you to David Morgenstern. You may know that name from Gaddies, and so welcome, David. Please tell us who you are, what you do, and all about the members of your family.
Perfect. Well, what I do is try to keep it together. So my name is David. Pronouns are he, him. I live in Portland, Oregon. In my household, we have my husband, Raphael, and my just turned 4-year-old kiddo, Simon. And recently, a couple months ago, I launched Gaddies, which is short Gay Daddies, which is the first brand in the world really focused on specifically serving gay dads and our families in our community. I think when I became a parent, wanting to find connection and wanting to find community in a new way. And that sort of use case where you're at a park or you're at the airport and you're trying to figure out, are they gay dads? Are they just queer? And so I come from a background in product and got very excited about creating a brand for us. So creating physical products that we could wear out to sort of signal and represent ourselves in a new way, and then form a real identity and community around this term Gaddie or Gaddies, which is also new to sort of speak to who we are and build a community.
It's cool. Many of us have heard gunkle before for gay uncle. So as soon as I read Gaddies, I was like, oh, I love that. That's perfect. I knew exactly what it was.
It was definitely one of those moments where you're like, oh, this doesn't exist yet. This should exist. It makes sense in a second to the people that it will make sense to. And really, again, like gives this, I love it because actually originally the company was called Gaddie. Then we ran into some trademark issues. And so we pivoted to Gaddies, which I actually now love more because it's much more about us and community and sort of the group.
Yeah, it's a plural. It's
exactly.
Not just one. It's all of them.
Absolutely. So I think it ties everything together quite nicely.
No, I fully agree. And I think really thinking about it, and I didn't know Gaddie was on the table, but thinking about it, I really think we could really only have it one way, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes things work out the way they should, even though in the moment you're like, oh God, I didn't want this. But here we are.
Exactly. Fate knows more than we do, I guess.
The joys of entrepreneurship.
Right? It's very true. Very, very true. When you first created this concept in your mind, you say that you come from a branding background, so it makes sense that you're thinking about tangible items with branding on them to let people know that walking through an airport, walking through a park, walking through a grocery store, somebody wearing something that has Gaddies on it, everybody's going to know all the same, coming from the same spot. Whether it's the swish or the apple, now we've got Gaddies, we know what that means. But it's become more than just branding.
Yeah.
So can you delve into that a little bit? Because the picture that you had, I feel like, whether intentional or not, has just absolutely exploded. And really, like you said, in a fairly short period of time.
Yes. Well, thank you. That's very kind. I think it's one of those things where when it's the me, myself, and I working on it, even though it's been at this point 5 months, it's felt like 15 years. But I think to your point, one of the things that I was most excited about creating this brand was it created a holistic platform to rally around Gaddies. I think everything that has existed is very user specific to here's this family, here's this influencer, and those are very important stories. But now you have this ability to tell everyone's story through it and use this as a way to focus. Really, what I've been saying is, let's make up some numbers and say like 90% of parenting is the same no matter where, what you're doing, right? But that 10% that's super specific to a one gay dad family, a two gay dad family. Let's focus on those stories and let's focus on the family, not the formation, and use the community members to build the brand, right? So we have stories that we're telling. So for instance, we have a fellow that we've called the Gadvocate, right? And this guy Tom, who has lots of experience, his actual job title is advocate education. So he's talking about what does it mean like in the school district to be advocating for your child as a gay parent family. We have gay travel experts talking to us about what is it like to travel as a gay family? What do you need to be thinking about differently? So you build the brand through building the community, and
Mhm.
everyone wins and everyone gets the spotlight. And that's what really excited me about the idea and how it's come into life.
That's so cool. And you're based, as you say, in Portland, so
Hmm.
you're a US based company.
Hmm.
Do you really focus on meeting the needs and the questions and answering the questions really of the members of the gay dad community in the US, or are you looking at this as being sort of an international phenomena?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, love that branding. When I first started, like, again, I come from a business background and then working at a brand. The first thing I have to do is understand who is my consumer, who am I, what am I learning? So, in the fall, I probably talked to around 200 dads around the globe and really just listened to as many different stories as I could. And that's where I started to pick apart some of these themes to focus on that are consistent no matter where your experience is. And then the joys of living in 2025 from a business perspective is that, I can ship anywhere, right?
Right.
So I will say when those first orders came through from Germany and Portugal and England, it was like, whoa, people are going on the internet and saying, I feel connected to that. I want to be a part of that. I'm going to give you money for that, but more importantly, this is what you're providing me. And definitely, so we're filming this a week out of Father's Day, and seeing families that put up their Father's Day post in all of their Gaddies gear was a
Mhm.
really, really special moment that I don't think I appreciated how that was going to feel. But
Yeah.
just this notion of, yeah, here's this thing that didn't exist that is letting these families feel seen, feel joyful, feel celebrated in a new way.
Excellent. And I mean, I've seen some of these posts because we have similar people in common on our social media circles. So I
Yeah,
see people that have been on guests on my show showing up on social with their Gaddies gear on, and it's pretty fun to watch and to
yeah,
connect with them and say, "Hey, we know people in common." But
yeah.
it is fun. So I can only just imagine the swell that you get when Gaddies gets tagged in these posts so that you can really see, like you say, how international you have become in really
Yeah,
short order.
yeah, and like that was the point of this all, right? Is I want to bring new ways of joy. I want to bring new ways of celebration. I wanted to think about validation as well. So one
Mhm.
of the ideas behind it is also that people want to celebrate our families. They just don't think they know how to, and
Mhm.
so that means they don't do anything, right? And so things like on the Gaddy's website, yes, we have our branded apparel. We also have a bookstore that's just books either written by gay dads or books focused on gay dad families. We have resources for people around family planning, financial, legal. And so really trying to become this hub of information, both for aspiring gay dads. We have a future Gaddy hat, a future Gaddy shirt, and some people have been buying those and saying like, hey, it makes me feel connected to this community that I so desperately want to be a part of. And I think we all have our own journeys for what that path to parenthood looks like.
Mhm.
But whether people are already in the act of parenting, trying to parent, or also really focused on people who are later in life parenting. I think a lot of gay dad and queer parent stuff in general focuses really on the littles, the formation in the littles. And so
Mhm.
now it's telling stories of what does it look like to be becoming a grandparent, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or I haven't figured out what the term is there yet. Granddaddy is it's not really working. What does it look like to meet other parents of when your child is partnering, right? So
Yeah.
all those stories that no one has focused on and really give that light.
Yeah. And these are conversations that as a parenting coach, people reach out to me and talk to me about. So I love
Hmm.
to think that that's exactly the kind of content that you're also spending time thinking about. Because at the
Yeah,
end of the day, I think a lot of people think, well, this is a resource, and so we have this one resource. But what's beautiful is when we can network a bunch of resources, even if they're offering something similar, because one person's spin on it can be slightly different than
totally.
someone else's. And that's where we learn our most, right?
Right.
Talking our language, that one's telling me stuff. I'm going to pull out of that. I'm going to pull out of this. And together we
Hmm.
have a fully formed thought that we can move forward with. Because you're right. Parenting littles, you're so in the trenches and it's so 100% doing things for them and helping them learn how to do fundamentals. But then their brains start working for themselves. And that's parenting on a whole other level.
Hmm. Right. And I mean, you talk about, oh, well, there are other gay dads in my area, but my kid is 14 and their kid is 2, right? So it's hard for us to find that connection. And I
Yeah.
think what was super interesting as I had all these conversations with these different dads was hearing the experiences that are similar and different of folks who are the only gay dad family in their town, right? Like talking to
Yeah.
folks who lived in Alabama or Tennessee versus talking to people that live in major metropolitan where the notion that there are still places where that is a rarity exist
Mhm.
is so foreign. And so I think it's really important to be sharing both sides of that and finding the common ground that's occurring for everyone.
And does Gaddies offer any kind of meetups or forums for people to connect? And is that through the website or do you do that through social media? How does that function?
Excellent question on the product roadmap. So we're trying to figure out what does that look like in real time. We'll be, I think by the time this airs, we'll have already been at Provincetown for Family Equality Family Week, and we'll have our first instances there. We've done some test runs in Portland, which is mostly just the group of gay dad families that I have already. But figuring out how do you introduce that? What does that look like? I actually just had a dad yesterday reach out to say, hey, we live in Atlanta and we haven't been able to find other gay dads. Who do you know? Right. And so the connector in me and the wanting to build a community, there's so many different ways that you could go. And we're just gonna just test that a couple of different ways, right? And put up an Instagram story and say, here are, these two people, they live in Atlanta, they're looking for gay dads. Reach out if you want to connect and then scale it a little bit further.
Yeah. And really, I mean, until you kind of figure out what the need is for sure.
Right.
Because is it again based on what you were saying before, you've got the gay dads of littles who want to meet other gay dads of littles, and gay dads of 14-year-olds who want to meet other gay dads of 14-year-olds.
Exactly.
And you can go bowling with the 14-year-olds, harder to do that with the 2-year-olds. So,
Yeah. And then where's just the connection? And I will say, certainly, I didn't have Instagram before starting this. And so you join Instagram and then you're like, whoa, there's this whole network of people that seemingly know everyone. And you're sort of the new kid on the block trying to figure out. But I become a little bit of this neutral site where I feel like people tell me a little bit more than they share with others because of who I am and what I'm doing, and then I can learn from that, right? And figure
yeah.
out what does the community need. And this first year and a half is really about testing the marketplace, understanding what works. How do you start in one product group like an apparel and then build into functional parenting items, right? So what
Yeah.
does the Gaddies diaper bag look like? What are just other places that we know parents are spending time and they want to represent themselves through a company, through a brand that speaks to them and for them directly in an unapologetic way.
Yeah. Well, and but that's a huge part of it, right? As consumers, as queer parent consumers, we
Right.
want to be able to get what we need, buy what we need, do what we need to do, but we want to do that with a company that doesn't deny our existence or
Right.
treat us as less than. So
Hmm.
you make like an excellent point about even extra stuff, not just the shirts and the hats and things like that, but diaper bags and other paraphernalia that comes with being a parent that we just automatically pick up
Yeah.
when we can get it from a company that we know respects who we are as individuals.
Right. And I think, the reason that this type of company hasn't existed before, I think, or at least my own perspective, is a couple of different things. Number one, it is not a giant global marketplace, right? So if you are an investor looking for a $1 billion opportunity, you're not going to look and say, yes, that group right there today. Now, is the earnings of this group over represented in some ways, and is there amazing potential? Absolutely. And then the second is, for this to work, it has to have come from the community in a way that people trust, right? So if you're a big global brand, I don't think it would have worked for you to just launch this for people to say, well, who is that and what does that look like? And I will
Yeah.
say, on the personal level, that's been one of the challenges for me. Is this is not a David brand, but I need to be in front of it in ways that allow people to feel connected, for people to feel trust. So a lot of that is conversations like these, right? And sort of
Yeah.
go into like, hey, where are these authenticators in the community that I'm trying to go to? How do I tell my story so people can hear and learn? But the Instagram page is not 90% David, right?
Right.
And that balance is a tough one, and trying to figure out the pieces to the trying to figure out the pieces together. And some of it's testing, some of it's pushing myself outside of the comfort level to go there. But yeah, the trust is the trust for any brand is the biggest issue, and especially
Sure.
for this community, this group in this moment.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, as you know, gay and queer parents have always existed,
Yep.
right? This is not a new idea in
Nope.
any way, sense, of the form. But what's new about it is now there is this critical mass of folks that are able to do it authentically as themselves, to have something like an identity and to have a group. And so it's also really important to recognize and pay homage to all the people that fought for me to be able to sit here as a parent, all the people that are still fighting for us, and the people that will fight in the future, and not overlook that and not simplify it or demean it in any way.
No. Do you have like this vision in the like do you have this roadmap in your mind? You started here, I get that, and you've been growing out like this. When you look at Gaddies in a year or in 5 years, where what do you visualize for that? Or have you even really, because things have been snowballing pretty quickly,
Yeah.
do you, or have you even let yourself look that far?
Yeah. I mean, I will say, we were super honored that a couple of big publications picked us up for Pride, including like Out Magazine. And a friend who's living abroad in Australia just like sent me a screenshot and was like, "Is this you on this?" And I was like, "That is me." I think first it's the feeling and it's the connection, right? Like, if we go back to every millennial's favorite examples of Mean Girls, and it's you're making fetch happen, but in a really authentic way. And so I think the goal in 5 years is that Gaddy is Gunkles, right? And Gaddies is Gunkles, and people really feel connected to this word and a part of their identity that maybe they didn't even know they wanted, or that they were looking for, and that it makes them feel supported, it makes them feel excited, and that's what's going to make them want to participate and engage with the brand in different ways. And maybe that's the product, maybe that's some of the other things that we're thinking about in the background, but it all starts from that feeling, and that
Yeah.
yeah, this is for me, this is speaking to me, I feel seen in this, right? And
Mhm.
there are so many, going back to your initial question of dads around the globe, we come in all the shapes and sizes, right? That's the beauty of the queer community. It's the challenge of the queer community. And
Sure.
so how do you speak to that? And you've got folks at very different socioeconomic statuses. You've got people in very different living situations. And how do you find the ground that's going to make everyone feel connected, and then take some chances on things a little bit on the edges?
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
Gaddies. We're the first brand made by and for gay dads, built to celebrate the families we've created. Our tees, hats, and hoodies aren't just clothes. They're conversation starters, connection makers, and reminders that you're part of a bigger community. Whether you're at the playground, the pride parade, or owning the dance floor, Gaddies make sure that you feel seen and celebrated. Find us at HEYGADDIES.com and on Instagram at HEYGADDIES. Gaddies, because every dad deserves his moment.
You mentioned the diversity of the queer community, and you're right, it is so
Mm-hmm.
wildly broad in the languages we speak and how we present and how we dress and how we create our families, all of it. And so really it feels like the world is your oyster to just to tap into bits of
Yeah.
all of that. That's pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
And I will say, when I first started, one of the initial thoughts in my mind was, from a business lens, right? There's I'm going to speak to gay dads, to queer dads, and be very specific in who I'm serving. But then there are these sort of the outer rings of it, right? And I will
Mhm.
say one of the questions for me was how might, masculine presenting women or
Mhm.
how might butches identify with the term? And that has been really interesting to see. I specifically have the one of my products is bottles and biceps. And like a lot of those consumers right now are women who love women and they actually are like identify as the dad in our relationship. So I'm connecting to Gaddy and I'm
Mhm.
connecting to that term. And like I don't know where and how that goes, but it's been really interesting and really cool to see some other parts of the community feel connected to it. And you have that thought in the back of your mind of like, well, maybe this will be a thing. But having that happen has been really neat.
You're right. And I think about the different forums that I'm on and people that I've met and podcasts that I listen to, and I hear
Yeah.
people using different terms to describe themselves all the
Yeah.
time. And I
Yeah.
can totally see Gaddy's appealing to more than just a stereotypical gay dad, but
Hmm.
really anybody who has a, a feeling like they tend to be more dad than mom.
Yeah. Or then, there's also the in the playfulness that the gay community uses daddy, are there going to be other folks that latch onto it in a new and different way? And that would be quite exciting as well. And I have so far I'm not focused on them, but I have this one shirt that's Gaddies Love Me, right? And did it as a crop top. And I was like, listen, this is for the 24-year-old that's going out to the festivals and going out to the bars and wants to make it very clear this is what we're doing.
Yep.
And then you start seeing some cases of that happening and having some fun with it in a way that I think the queer community does very well in our own way and not abiding and frankly not caring about some of the more traditional rules. And that's where when you can be nimble and you can be as small as we are, you can go and try some things. And that's both
Absolutely.
very scary and very exciting.
That's so there may or may not be an 18 plus section on the website.
Only Gads. We'll see what happens when it
Only
when it
Gad.
goes when it goes from there. Yeah, I mean, I got things for days. I'm like, I don't have money to trademark all of these things, but we got all these different places that you could take it and have some fun with it.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. So you've got different experts that you highlight through your website. Can
Hmm.
you talk a little bit about how they present their work? Are they doing them as blogs? Are they doing them as vlogs? Are they doing them as podcasts?
Yeah.
How are you getting that word out?
Well, I think the cool thing so far about what we've been building at Gaddies is that gay dads have been the ecosystem building it, right? So when I started out, the first branding people I was working with was a gay dad. The someone I'm working with on social media is a gay dad. The lawyer, SEO, like so, trying to have as many different voices as possible be the ones building this, which has just been super neat and an amazing way to meet all these different people. Right now we're doing a mixture of blogs and video blogs, right? So there's a wanting to have some core content live on the website that people can find. So there's things like how do you respond to where is the mom, right? There's things to what are the tallest strollers out there. So when I did all the interviews,
Yeah.
I was really hoping that there was going to be some parenting product that was not servicing to dad families that I could say, okay, I'm going to go do the gay dad version of that.
Yeah.
Really, the one that popped out was strollers were too short. So I was like, okay, I can't at this moment build a new stroller, but I can go and pull together a list of here are all the tallest strollers for you to
Mhm.
consider as you're putting those things together. And I think similar to you, right? It's sort of testing and learning and saying, well, I actually have a topic that I'm working on right now where I'm like, do I need to do a full blog on this? Or if I have this 5 minute conversation clip and I can pull it down into the reels and that's how it works. This Father's Day, we did a thing, we'd interviewed 100 dads and asked them, what do you want to hear on Father's Day? And we just put that up as sort of a series of static posts that was like, here's what you say to gay dads and here's what you don't say. And so that combination of educational and insight is something that I think you'll see more of and really, again, continuing that gay dads told us theme. So it is we are
Mhm.
reporting out what the community is saying.
Yeah.
It's not this is what we're trying to push.
That as you say that, I'm bombarded in my head with all of the insensitive comments that people make and questions that people ask, thinking that I'm just curious
Right.
and not realizing. So having sort of the platform you have and putting things together like that is a way to sort of say to people, and you know, the way you ask questions Yeah, it's insensitive. You're not
Right.
meaning for it to be insensitive, but
Yeah.
microaggressions are called microaggressions for a reason because
And
they
I
build
think,
up.
right. And I think naming and being very clear that how you choose to respond to those is always going to be a matter of safety first, right?
Yeah,
Where are
sure.
you? Who are you?
Yeah.
Um, you, depending on who you are, you're going to have different levels of social privilege that might impact how you answer that. And so
Sure.
there's no right way to deal with it. And sort of, hey, here are six or seven different ways to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been especially landing with, the future gaddies that we've been talking to who are somewhere on their journey. Some of them are, expecting a baby in a couple months. Some of them are just starting, but just allowing them to hear that and allowing them to let that sink in and figure out what's my answer going to be, because I think all of us at this point have a stored answer, and sort of
Mhm.
depending on the day and depending on the mood, you've got a couple different ones that you might fire off.
Fire off is the actually key words there
Yeah,
because
yeah,
how you get that message back out really is dependent on how
yeah.
many
And
times you've been asked that day, the tone, everything, right?
I will say the joys of being someone with heavy set eyebrows that's always told I look angry is I get fewer of those questions. And so you know what? Sometimes that works.
That's
Yep.
not a bad thing.
Yeah, not a
That's
bad thing.
not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
I I mean, as we sit and talk about what you've created so far and sort of your visions for moving forward, there's so many things that come to my mind that I'm thinking, oh, but what about and what about, and I'm thinking too, like I love the idea that you've got a combination of written blogs as well as video content because I'm thinking about the dad that's sitting up at 3 in the morning feeding the baby that's flipping through and just wants to read some resources and some information or get
Hmm.
that, oh, yeah, you're sitting up feeding baby. Well, I'm sitting up
Hmm.
feeding my baby too. And these are the thoughts
Yeah.
that came to my mind and
Yeah.
having
And
something they can read.
also become a place where an additional place that people can send to folks in their lives that want to celebrate them and want to honor them in a new way, right?
Yeah.
So answer the question of like, hey, I have friends who are becoming dads. What do I get them? Great, come here. Here's a way that you can sort of honor and serve them. Or
Yeah.
I want to buy and feature, different books for my own family, right? So again, other parts of the community are sort of branded them as the Gaddy baddies, right? So, typically women, though, straight men as well, who have always had queer friends and now their queer friends are having kids and they want to celebrate them. They want to be a part of that,
Yeah.
but again, they may not know how to do that, right? And so
Sure.
becoming that way and still doing it in an authentic voice, but it becomes accessible for them.
Yeah. Uh, it it feels like you're ticking so many boxes for so many people to provide them with well, essentially, like I hope what this podcast does answers the questions that they don't even know that they have, and
Right.
that's really what it sounds like you're putting together for people. I'm helping you find your answers before you even have the question, so that when the question comes up, you're not left scrambling.
Yeah.
You've got a place to hit to kind of get the information to move forward.
Yeah. And all of it, I think, anchors in, we became parents in peak COVID, right? So you
Oh,
take an already lonely, isolating experience and amplify that.
yeah,
And until you go through something, you don't know how it's going to feel. So I did not appreciate how lonely an experience being a parent can be.
yeah,
And then you magnify that by being a queer parent and being a subset of that.
yeah,
That was really, again, the motivation for, hey, let's find a new way to celebrate us to come together in a way that makes people feel connected.
yeah. And then you think about the people who are still isolated because they're in those insular communities like you've talked about where they don't know that there are other gay dads or if there are other gay dads
Yeah.
around.
And I
So,
think to your one of your original questions of like, hey, how did you start this? The answer was like getting as far out of my Portland bubble as I could be in, because one of the reasons we stayed in Portland is it's just incredibly easy to be a queer parent here, and recognizing this is so far from the norm for most of the community. So how do
yeah.
you go and listen and solve the problems and speak to the pieces that those folks are looking for?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, we need and again, the fact that you do this so that people can access it at any time of day because it's when we're sitting in the dark that we often feel like we are our most alone and we're looking
Mm-hmm.
for community and
Mm-hmm.
And then you flip through a website that has content that feels relevant and is written and is created by
Yeah.
members of the community.
Yeah. And I think, humor is also a big part of
100%.
this. I was like, this has to be funny.
Hmm.
It has to, but also from a business lens, you're straddling a fine line, right? Because I do have so I have kids' clothes as well. And it is very much a parent focused endeavor, but you recognize like, hey, on that Instagram feed, there's going to be a picture of a child. What is that next to? And my background was in kids apparel. And so the first rules are you really have to think those things through and do it in a way that's going to tell the story, but in a manner that's going to work and be appropriate.
Well, and I mean, those are the kinds of things that wouldn't even cross my mind
Yeah.
necessarily because it's
So
so not my world.
yeah, so for instance, and by the time this comes out, right, we're doing like a leather line, right? So some leather not shirts with a leather gaddy, and really that's telling the story that becoming a parent doesn't eliminate your desire, right? And I think
Yep.
that side of parenting and that side of the gay community is not told at all, right? And so we're sort of here to tell all of that and say we at all times are all these different pieces, and how do we put that together? And so I'm excited to see what is the reaction to that. But like that's not a line where I'm going to have kids portions, right? When I came out with
100%.
my flamingo, sort of making the flamingo, male flamingos are known to raise children together, right? So we're sort of rallying behind this flamingo as the mascot. You've got
Yeah.
the bears and the otters, and now we've got the flamingos. That makes sense to incorporate,
Yeah.
kids features and put that together. But yeah, I'm really excited. We have one of our graphics is called the Heartness, and it's this pink heart with the heart harness on it, and sort of a new idea and putting it together. So we're having some fun with it. And again, you can do that when you're starting fresh and starting new and seeing what
Sure.
works and what resonates. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we don't lose our sexuality when we
Yeah.
become parents. We are still sexual beings
Yeah.
and parents.
Yeah, and
So,
we parent differently, right? So, one of the questions that as I talked to all these dads, I asked was, how are you meeting other gay dads? And, answer number one was through friends of friends. Answer number two was through structured community groups, so school, maybe a religious affiliation. And then number three was the gay apps, right? So Grindr, Scruff, and the way that we use those apps for everything. And it's just sort of the modern gay bar, and that's where people are finding friends, and that's
sure.
where they're connecting. So being unapologetic about that and also speaking to it.
I'm so excited about seeing where Gaddies goes. Please tell listeners where they can find you.
Yeah. So our website is heygaddies.com, HeyGaddies.com.
Hmm.
And our Instagram is the same at HeyGaddies. And you can contact me directly on there. You can send me a DM. I'm also still actively talking with dads. Selfishly, I try to talk to one or two dads a week because it gives me the energy to keep going, right? Like starting a
Sure.
business is very hard. But
Yeah,
every time I talk to a new dad, I get the energy. I pull insights from that conversation, but it also
sure.
gives me oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this, and keep going and putting all those pieces together.
Yeah. And it does. And can people send you the questions that they have about I mean when you're looking at different people to bring in content to share on your site, they if they have a specific area of focus that they would like to
Yeah,
ask about or
absolutely. If there are questions that you want to hear from the advocate, if there's content that you're an expert in,
Mhm.
that you think there is a unique story to be told. So again, I've had gay dad travel agents, gay dad gynecologists talking about, hey, how do manage that? That's what I want to be speaking to. And
Mhm.
so please reach out with ideas, with questions. This is really built from the community for the community.
100%. And everything you've said clearly reflects that. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the
Yeah.
same question I ask everybody who comes on the show. You have a 4-year-old. What is your very favorite part of parenting that we soul?
Yeah. So my answer is every child is different.
Hmm.
My kiddo is not a physical affection kiddo, and last week he just like took both of my hands for the first time and put them, or you took his two hands and put them around my two hands. And so there's something particularly powerful about those moments when, as a parent, we don't get to experience them maybe in the way that we thought that we would. So that one is getting me through for the next couple of weeks. It was one of those moments where you're like, don't move, like don't breathe, don't move, don't let anything change. This is a thing. So certainly that. And then more general, just when they can do something they didn't used to be able to, right? Like we put the days of the week chart on the wall and now he knows the days of the week. And I'm like, you didn't know how to do that. And now you do. So that part's pretty amazing.
Their little brains moving forward. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's much amazing. Too quickly sometimes. But
and it doesn't slow down. So I'm going to just tell you to buckle up.
I will also say many people lied to us. They're like, oh, just get through 3 and get to 4. And now they're like, no. You got to get to 5 or 6. I'm like, well, why did you tell me that it was going to get better at 4? So love them the best, but also, oof.
Yes. Yeah, it ebbs and flows, right? There's going to be parts of it that are great.
Then they take your hand and the world is amazing for those 20 seconds or something. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Tell the world about Gaddies, because I think we need more community spirit. And I think that you are clearly spearheading that for the gay dad community.
Well, thank you, Sam, for having me.
My pleasure. As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only 2 prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.